Viewpoints on the talk station FM 107 AM 1240. As you know, a topic of grave concern here at Viewpoints, and particularly with me personally, is our military investment in North Carolina. As a result, I'm always interested when I hear that events are taking place that will have a positive impact on our area and particularly our military contingent in North Carolina. And of course, as I always like to brag, FRC East, located at Cherry Point, is the single largest employment base in all of eastern North Carolina, which takes up quite a large swath of North Carolina. And also, just to make another observation, the military investment and the military industries in North Carolina represent the second leading indicator or employment source in North Carolina behind agriculture. So this is an important issue. So coming up today, an interview with Representative Mac Thornberry of Texas. He's visiting our area, and as a matter of fact, will be in our community tomorrow, Thursday. He's attending or being asked to make a presentation, a roundtable discussion on the focus of the future of military investment, not only in the country, but in North Carolina. And he is the vice chairman of the U.S. House Armed Services Committee and chairman of the Subcommittee on Intelligence, Emerging Threats, and Capabilities. He's been asked to visit our area as a result of an invitation presented by Representative George Holding. He will be attending this meeting 4:30 tomorrow at the North Carolina History Center, Coleman Performance Hall, part of Tryon Palace. And with that, Congressman Thornberry, welcome to Viewpoints. Thanks for taking the time to be with us, sir.
No, thanks for having me, Lockwood.
This is an important opportunity and issue for us. As I just mentioned, I sort of telegraphed our concern, and that, of course, is the future of our military investment in North Carolina. And I know that that will be the topic of discussion with you tomorrow. I would like to chat about that, and also just briefly to get an overview and an observation related to the events of the past week as a result of international activities. But first, tell us something about your district, the 13th district there in Texas.
Well, the district I represent is all along the top part of Texas, from just outside Dallas-Fort Worth all the way out to New Mexico along the Oklahoma border. So it's very large. It's bigger than 13 states. We have some military interests, one major Air Force base, and we also have a nuclear weapons facility. But generally, folks in my area, like I think folks in North Carolina, believe that the first job of the federal government is to defend the country. And so they're willing to allow me to spend most of my time in Congress on those issues.
Well, it's an important issue, and of course, we can get into briefly the topic of defending the country at the border. I think Texas has a small connection to Mexico. I have to go back and check my geography. Tongue-in-cheek on that one, as you recognize. Before we get into those broader issues, let's talk briefly, if we can, about the role of the military and the Defense Department and what we can anticipate. And I know that as a caveat to you, you are obviously working in a dynamic environment. You do not have control of all the activities, but of grave concern here in eastern North Carolina for sure. And I know you're going to be visiting Goldsboro, Seymour Johnson. I know you're aware of that area, as well as Camp Lejeune, home of the 2nd Marine Division, and Marine Corps Air Station Cherry Point, home of the 2nd Marine Air Wing. There's a grave concern as to the future of the military investment, not only from the perspective of those that are wearing the uniform, but all those industries and particularly civil service activities that are related to that. How much can we or should we anticipate in changes in either focus and or support for our military? Is there going to be and continue to be support for our military mission?
Well, I think so. And just to step back for just a second, I think it's worth reminding that all of us have seen decreases in military budgets. And so that's as if they continue to go down, that's what leads people to say, well, maybe we need to close some bases, realign some things, whatnot. One of my cautions is, though, once we give up a base, once we give up a training range, once we give up a capability, it's just nearly impossible to get it back. And so that's part of the reason that I'm interested in coming and talking with folks in eastern North Carolina, because I know they're concerned about the economy and what the effects it would have on y'all's region. But in addition to that, it really affects the country. Once we lose a base, once we lose a capability, it's just nearly impossible to see how we're going to recover it. And as you referenced, the world is getting more dangerous, not less.
To that point, and in your capacity, not only as the Vice Chairman of the U.S. House Armed Services Committee, you are the Chairman of the Subcommittee on Intelligence, Emerging Threats and Capabilities. Is that, it's a rhetorical question because I'm confident it is that of grave concern to the folks in Washington? And my question to you on that is based on all the other activities that have been taking place, both nationally and internationally, and that we've got to get into the issue of our borders. There seems to be an awful lot that Congress is having to deal with in the process, possibility of, if you will, losing focus on a particular aspect. Does Washington have a priority list? And if so, where does our military and defense of our country fall in that priority list, in your opinion?
Well, I think the priority list is being rearranged because of events in the world. And I think it is fair to say both Republicans and Democrats have taken some of our military capability for granted. Lots of people were worried about the deficit. Other people just wanted to leave Iraq and Afghanistan and kind of come home and not worry about the rest of the world. But what really strikes me as I look around is the huge array of different kinds of threats that we face, from the super states of Russia and China to this new terrorism threat to even things like you mentioned the unaccompanied minors coming across the border, the potential of spread of disease, whether from Africa or Central America. We have to be ready for all sorts of things, and that means all sorts of military capability that we have to have in order to be strong and to deal with that.
And related to that, mentioning the military capability, of course, are the support services. And one of the great concerns we have here in eastern North Carolina, we've accommodated changes in civil service, and we've seen the change to private contractors, which we've accommodated. The fear we have is that there may be a constant reduction, not only in the military, but the services being rendered to the military. Is there a concern to that in your perspective?
Sure. If the military shrinks, then everything around the military shrinks. And again, the status of the current law is if Congress and the President don't agree to a different path, the military will shrink. And especially, I think the Army and the Marine Corps will be more affected than the other services. And so you're absolutely right. Everything supporting the military services, whether it's contractors, civil service, everything would go down. And it's not just numbers. The capability that they bring goes down, too. That means the country can do less.
Our guest, by the way, Representative Mac Thornberry of Texas. He's Vice Chairman of U.S. Armed Services Committee and Chairman of the Subcommittee on Intelligence, Emerging Threats and Capabilities. And he will be in attendance at a roundtable discussion tomorrow in New Bern, starting at 4:30 in the afternoon. The public is cordially invited. Particularly all community leaders are, I would heartily recommended to be in attendance. It will be taking place at the North Carolina History Center at the Coleman Performance Hall there, part of Tryon Palace. Congressman, moving to another issue, and I'm confident this will be one of the topics of discussion tomorrow in your conversation, of course, is the future of the military investment, not only in North Carolina, but nationally. But Congressman, the other issue, and related to your activities as chairman of the Subcommittee on Intelligence, Emerging Threats and Capabilities, two items. One, and I do want to get to the super states of Russia and China briefly, but of most notable concern here recently in the past, several weeks of news, obviously the issue of the border, and you there in Texas. What is happening in Texas, and what is the threat there for the U.S.?
Well, the number of unaccompanied minors is less than it was, say, a month ago. I was down at the border just about exactly 1 month ago, and they were seeing the beginning of a decline in the number of unaccompanied minors, but they're expecting 90,000 unaccompanied minors. Now, that doesn't even count the children that are coming with a mother or with some other guardian. So we have never seen this number of children come across the border, and that presents all sorts of challenges. Number one, how do you take care of those kids? Number two, are they, as we mentioned, there's been concern about tuberculosis and other diseases that would come with them. Number three, obviously the drug cartels are making money off the transport of these children, and they're also taking advantage of the fact that our Border Patrol has been focused on the children, and that means that it's harder for them to focus on the drug cartels bringing their contraband across the border. So, as you may know, Governor Perry in Texas has called out the National Guard to be a backup for support services for the Border Patrol. I think it's being helpful. State law enforcement people are backing them up. The bottom line, however, is that any country must be able to control who and what comes across its borders, and that's the federal government's responsibility. It's not really the National Guard, and it's not really the state law enforcement. It's the federal government's responsibility, and the federal government hadn't been doing it.
And then associated with it, of course, the concern related to terrorist activity, and that will allow us to not only focus on the border issue, but the events in the Middle East. The topic, emerging threats, is it's really just a casual question. I think I know the answer. The threat of ISIS and what's going on in the Middle East, and then you add to that trying to keep score with Syria, the rebels in Syria, the variety of rebels in Syria, and then suddenly we find ourselves, oddly enough, on the same side as that of Iran. By the way, unless something's changed, Iran still has as its ultimate goal the elimination of Israel. How do you, as chairman of the Subcommittee on Intelligence and Emerging Threats and Capabilities, how do you parse this out, and what does this mean for us, for this country, and our military readiness?
It means we face a host of dangers everywhere you look. And, as you rightly point out, a number of these dangers want to kill as many Americans as possible or pose a grave threat of their ability to do so. So, for example, Iran gets a nuclear weapon with missiles that can already reach Israel. They're working on missiles that have longer distance. And so we're threatened by that, as well as this terrorist group, which is, in summary, the best financed, best equipped, best trained terrorist organization that we have ever seen.
Wait, Congressman, I'm sorry. You're not talking about the JV basketball squad, are you?
Yeah, the JV kids grew up fast.
Okay. Well, I was wondering if it was the same folks. Okay, I apologize. Well, what's bothersome here, Congressman, we're looking at, let's bring us all the way back to the outset of our conversation, the possibility of drawdown of our military forces. We're already seeing that. I read a recent article in the Marine Corps. A large number of gunnery sergeants had been basically cashiered. Chiefs in the Navy. That is, by the way, having been a Squiddy, a former naval officer, the chief made the ship go, as far as I'm concerned. This is critical. We're seeing the drawdown in these various military areas and fields and ranks, and then we're seeing the growth, if you will. It's almost like guacamole. You push down here, you push, and something pops over there. ISIS or ISIL. We're seeing Syria, things now degrading in Libya, as well as already degraded in Lebanon. And then you mentioned a few moments ago the superstates, China and Russia. Congressman, I don't envy you, but what are the solutions? What do we do?
Well, I think the number one solution is we don't cut the military anymore. And again, that's one of the reasons I so much appreciate George Holding inviting me down. I've sat on Armed Services Committee with Walter Jones for a number of years. All of us who are concerned about the military are going to have to put our heads together to make sure that it doesn't get cut anymore, and that we have this full array of capabilities to deal with probably more serious threats than any of us have faced in our lifetime. And so that's the importance, I think, of going around and talking together. It's to put our heads together to make sure there are no more cuts in defense, and to figure out a path that we can continue to get our budget in order, but make sure the federal government fulfills its primary responsibility, and that is to defend the country.
Congressman Mac Thornberry, our guest. And Congressman, final question for you. You mentioned nuclear weaponry, and I know that's an area of knowledge, an area of expertise you have, particularly in your capacity on intelligence and emerging threats and capabilities. Nuclear Iran, you mentioned that a few moments ago. There's a concern now that we may once again see a return of the Cold War. How serious is that?
Oh, it's very serious. Here's the perception, right or wrongly, around the world is that the United States is in retreat. So that encourages Putin, among others, to be more aggressive and to see what he can get away with. And he will keep pushing, and he will keep pushing, especially if we degrade our military capability. So, there's a lot of wisdom going back to Reagan and before, which is we need a strong military that helps prevent aggression from ever taking place to begin with. Right now, we're on the other side of that, where the perception is that we're cutting our military. That encourages people like Putin to be more aggressive, and a weakened United States equals a more dangerous world. There's just no two ways about it.
Our guest, and I thank him for being with us this afternoon, U.S. Representative Mac Thornberry, 13th Congressional District of Texas. He's visiting our area today. Well, he's in North Carolina later this afternoon, and tomorrow he will be in New Bern, 4:30 at the North Carolina History Center at the Coleman Performance Hall. The public is cordially invited, and I would commend all community and business leaders to be in attendance at this. It's a roundtable discussion to talk about, well, not only the future of Cherry Point and Camp Lejeune, but quite frankly, the future, Congressman, I would say, of this country. I do appreciate your time. Thank you very much for being with us this afternoon on Viewpoints.
Oh, thanks for having me, sir.
Viewpoints on the talk station FM 107 AM 1240.